you really need to learn that the good you do means God is really at work in your life. You know, we're so Arminian to the core as humans that we don't recognize that when we do a simple good thing like don't beat your children or don't slap your wife around, God's at work in your life. Or if you come up with anything, any good idea to go somewhere on time, maybe, that's God at work.
We don't often think of showing up on time or speaking gently as evidence of divine empowerment. But what if they are? I'm Dan Kruver. In this episode of Light and Truth, John Piper helps us notice and celebrate the quiet ways God is working obedience into our lives. This talk was originally delivered at Bethlehem Baptist Church on Wednesday evening, September 18th, 1991.
Well, his primary longing is to demonstrate, to display his glory for the enjoyment of his creature. That if you define God's longings as the longings born not of need, but of fullness, then the only way to understand them is that they are longings of this outwardness. I want the spread of who I am. I want people to see. I want people to enjoy. I want there to be a reverberating back to me of all that I am. That's the overarching desire of the Lord. And every other desire, I think, is just a subspecies of that one desire. We're commanded to glorify God in everything that we do, 1 Corinthians 10:31. And that means that God's one desire and longing for us is that we glorify Him in all that we do. So, I mean, I could say a lot more because there are a lot of species of that desire. I mean, the Bible is just replete with hundreds and hundreds of statements where God wants this. I mean, the 10 Commandments are 10 longings of God, I would say. He longs for nobody to commit adultery. He longs for nobody to kill, steal, lie, covet, goof around in lustful or worldly ways on Sunday, etc. So, I mean, the list could just go on and on. Sermon on the Mount expresses God's longings. Ultimately, they will not be frustrated. He allows himself to be short-term frustrated all over the place. Example, I assume it was, in one sense, God's will for my son Benjamin to show the Jesus film to 15 unbelieving soccer team members last Wednesday night. And at 4:30, the transformer went out over there. And they left before it came back on. Now, God can fix a transformer. I mean, what kind of God would we have if He can't fix a transformer? But He didn't. He didn't do it. And Benjamin and I have been theologizing for a week and figure out what God is up to. And we listened to a tape that I hope will circulate through this church by a pastor named Gerald Gilliard. And I got my boys to listen to that, Rod, that tape you gave me. It's about a black preacher who grew up under a bridge, basically, and God made something out of his life, and he tells the story of what God was doing while he thought God was forgetting him. And Benjamin listened to that thing, and when we prayed after that tape, he had enough of an answer. He had enough of an answer for why God would allow the transformer. I mean, I heard the thing pop, pow, and my first thought was, oh, that'll be fixed before 5:30, won't it? God's longings are different in that they will not be frustrated. And I said they will not be ultimately frustrated. He suffers himself to be frustrated. Just like last night, I was playing soccer with Barnabas and Abraham said, don't play your hardest. Make it equal. And so I don't play my hardest, and it ends in a tie. I can make it end in whatever score I want it to end in. But they love it when I figure out a way not to put them down by kind of, letting the ball go in like that, but looking like I really tried. Working at it and falling down and playing hard, but not slaughtering them. So I can't beat Benjamin. It's just the little guys that I, that I can beat. So God suffers himself with his creatures to be put upon. We've lots more to say about that. I don't want to be overstating the case of his sovereignty, but we're going to say lots. Number 4, how do Romans 11:34-36 and Acts 17:25 support the truth that God is all-sufficient and dependent on nothing outside himself for his fullness? So let's just read these, and you'll see, I think, the answer. Who has known the mind of the Lord, or who has been his counselor? What's the answer to that question? No one. I think. If you disagree, holler. Or who has given a gift to him that he might be repaid? No one. Why not? 4. From him, through him, and to him are all things. Therefore, to him be glory. That's a great text. Oh, what a theology in that text. Basically, it says that since, this is the bottom line here, since everything comes from God, he's the fullness, he's the fountain. What is there but God? Before there was anything but God, there's just nothing but God. Everything comes from God. And not only that, once he's made stuff and made people and made beings and angels and humans and frogs and horses and things, then what happens through him too. He is involved. He's not out there watching merely. And all things happen to him for his glory. Therefore, now, nobody that he has made could ever counsel him so as to make him wiser. Nobody could ever give a gift to God so as to make him richer, or worse, put him in our debt so that he would have to repay us. So that text seems to me to state what we've been saying. That God is the fountain, God is fullness, God is overflow, everything is from him, to him, through him, so nobody can give anything to him, nobody can counsel him, therefore he gets the glory in everything he does, and nobody else does. Except what he pleases to spill over on them. And the text from Acts 17 is similar. He is not served by human hands. Now that would correspond to nobody counsels him, nobody gives to him. He is not served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all men life and breath and everything. Now there it is again. It's just so clear biblically that God's the giver, we're the receiver, and therefore we should never reverse roles with him and pretend that we're enriching him or becoming his benefactor or meeting his needs in any way. Question on those texts or comments? This is all leading up to the inevitable conclusion that being that full and free, he enjoys what he chooses to do. But we're not there yet. Question number 5. If you let King David be your example, how would you speak to God when you are giving him something? This text says you can't give him anything. Or who has given a gift to him, but let's be careful, that he might be repaid. That's the sense in which you can't give him anything. You can't give him anything in such a way that you would then say, now, come on, pay up. Can't do that. Why not? Well, that's answered in number 5. If you let King David be your example, how would you then speak to God when you are giving him something, say an offering in church or a sacrifice of your life? What would you mean by give? Now, here's the prayer David prayed that I thought is good. It contains a theology of giving to God. Who am I This is the point where the people have brought money to the temple to build the temple, which David doesn't get to build, but Solomon does, and David is collecting the money for his son to build it. Who am I? What is my people that we should be able thus to offer willingly? For all things come from thee. Now there are two very important implications here. One of them is here, and one of them is here. This one is most obvious. All things come from thee. So if we give to thee, we are simply giving back what you have given to us. And so you're not getting richer. You own them already. They're on loan to us. But even the more powerful statement about God's sufficiency is in this first line. Who am I? What is my people? That we should be able thus to offer willingly. Now let's just talk about this for a minute. You tell me what's implied there. What are one or two things implied in that sentence about me and God and my giving and our relationship? Somebody tell me something. That we can't offer willingly in ourselves, Mark says. Now let's see, where are you getting that? That we can't offer willingly. Who am I and what is my people that we should be able thus to offer willingly? And Mark says that means in myself, I couldn't offer willingly. Implying that it was God's doing, it was God's gift that I was able to offer willingly. All right, now take it one step. I think that's true. I think that's here. And there's one. What does this imply in addition to that, and just taking it a step further? Who am I? If it's a gift that I was able to offer willingly, what does that say about the gift? Or me in my receiving of it? What? Exactly. We don't deserve it. We're not worthy of it. You know, like, we might say kind of, oh, sure, I wasn't willing to do it, but of course you gave me the gift. Of course. I'm me, or I'm a human. I'm in your image. You know, something like that. We might bargain with God and say, because of who I am, you gave me the gift to do this, and it's real natural. That's not the way David spoke, and that's not true. We are not only bankrupt and do not have anything to give to God except what He gives to us. We not only don't have the capacity to will freely to give, we also are unworthy to receive the gift of willing freely. All three of those are right here in this verse. This, who am I and what is my people that we should receive the gift of a will to give? The will didn't come from us. You gave it, and you gave it freely because I didn't deserve it. And so this should be very encouraging to you. It's ironic, isn't it, that something so utterly devastating to the human ego should be encouraging. But that's the way the Bible is. The encouraging thing is, you really need to learn that the good you do means God is really at work in your life. You know, we're so Arminian to the core as humans that we don't recognize that when we do a simple good thing like don't beat your children or don't slap your wife around, God's at work in your life. Or if you come up with any good idea to go somewhere on time, maybe, that's God at work. I mean, I believe that for unbelievers too. I believe in common grace. But for believers, it has a special father-child significance. Any good that you do is the work of God in your life. We just need to recognize that and start praising Him more. You know, one of the biggest concerns I have on my quest for power, spiritual gifts, which I'm still on, and probably will be the rest of my life, one of my big concerns is that I not become blind to the massive demonstrations of power in the ordinary things of the Christian life, like conversion, sanctification, being a holy and good person, wanting to do good things for people, wanting to inconvenience yourself to help somebody, are gifts of God to unworthy people. And you see, if you get your sense of well-being from the fact that God is for you rather than the fact that you deserve for Him to be for you, then you're happy when you hear that. If you get your sense of well-being from the fact that you need to be worthy of His gift, then you'll never have any solution in the Bible to your happiness problem. The Bible's solution to the happiness problem is that God's for you when you don't deserve it. And so we need to just lay down our arms. We need to lay down our need to feel like we deserve God's blessing. Here's just one other text that says the same thing. For who sees anything different in you? What have you that you did not receive? If you received it, why do you boast as though it were not a gift? So everything we have is a gift. What do you have that you did not receive as a gift? So if you received it as a gift, end boasting. Question, comment, anything on this one so far? Being kept, you mean? Coming as a gift and being kept as a gift? Let me see if I can try to dispel some of it right here. I had these written down and you're leading me. I'm going to put some texts up here. The question of God's overflowing fullness, meeting our need, and our being recipients could, I suppose, lead a person who's not thoroughly biblical, but picks one little truth out and then rides away on it and leaves the rest of the Bible behind, into passivity. You say, okay, I'm a void, I'm empty, I'm just a receptacle. God's a fountain, God's explosive, God's full. Go ahead, do your thing, God. And there are denominations that have led to that kind of passive approach to the Christian life. Now, there's a paradox here, and I'm just spending my life trying to learn how to live in this wonderful reality. Let me just quote you these texts so that you hear the biblical balance between your action and God's action in this relationship. 1 Peter 4:11, let him who serves serve in the strength that God supplies, that in everything God may get the glory. There's, you got that you again. God supplies, you serve, He gets the glory. And so we must figure out a way to serve. You serve, but you serve in the strength of another. And then He gets the glory. The giver gets the glory. Philippians 2:12 and 13, I think it's both 12 and 13. Work out your salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who is at work in you to will and to do His good purpose. So you do not do this unbiblical logic and say, God is at work in me to will and to do His good purpose, therefore I do not need to work out my salvation. This is totally unbiblical. The Bible says, God is at work in you to will and to do His good purpose, therefore work out your salvation with fear and trembling. You work because He works. Just, you know where that hits, the rubber hits the road for me is when the alarm goes off at 6 o'clock. All right? I'm lying in bed, 6 o'clock. Oh, man. And I do not like mornings, except that the alternative would be worse, I suppose. But waking up in the morning is very difficult. So the alarm goes off, click. Benjamin's got to be out of bed now. He didn't use an alarm. I'm the alarm for Benjamin. And he's got to be down to breakfast in 20 minutes. And so I'm lying there, and I say, who's going to get out of bed here? You going to get me out of bed, God? Or am I going to get out of bed? So now how do you make it work right there? It's my duty as a father. Besides, I want to spend a little time thinking about the Word before I have devotions with Benjamin, send him off at 6:49. So at that moment, you do some theologizing. You call to mind a few verses like this, and you say, now, Lord, if I get out of bed in my own strength, you're not going to get any glory for this. So I don't want to get out of bed in my own strength. You got to get me out of bed. And yet, it says, serve and work out your own salvation. And this one says, that He is in you, equipping you for every good work, working in you that which is pleasing in His sight. I know it would please you right now if I got out of bed, and you're supposed to work in me the getting out of bed. So go ahead. See, now, just lying there like that, saying, okay, do it. Go ahead. There's a little missing piece, namely will. See, I think we have the notion that if we use our will and say, all right, arm, push the covers back. Okay, stomach muscles, do it. Is if you do that God's not doing it. But that's not true according to this text. God is at work in you, enabling you to do what is pleasing in His sight. And the key is faith. If I say in my mind, Lord, I thank you for indwelling me. I thank you for strengthening me. I thank you for meeting me. I thank you for drawing my attention to yourself again this morning. I now rely upon you and look to you. In my willing, would you work so that the way I will would be pleasing to you and bring honor to you? Here I go in the name of Jesus. And then you use your will and you get up.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Light and Truth, where we are committed to providing God-centered preaching to help you see Christ clearly and treasure Him truly. I'm your host, Dan Kruver. On our next episode, John Piper begins a brief series titled, The God Who Does All He Pleases. I hope you'll join us. For more resources, visit desiringgod.org.